This new series, Locked In with Ashley Howard, is my new little venture, and I'm so happy that I could give it directly to you. You've been so supportive of me in the past, and this series is just going to be me getting in contact with some of your favorite celebs so we can chat about their upcoming projects. Hopefully, in the future, y'all can submit some questions. I can get those answered for you because I'm a woman of the people, okay? And today's guest is Judge Faith Jenkins. Now, you might know her from her show, Judge Faith, but she's also the executive producer and host of Killer Relationship, which airs on Oxygen Saturdays, 8, 7 Central. And she and I had a chance to speak earlier this morning, and I want you to take a look. So get locked in. Okay. Judge Faith, thank you so much for locking in with me today. I'm so excited for season 3 of Killer Relationship, but I have to ask your opinion. What is it with these true crime shows? I mean, why are we so obsessed? And I'm a little scared to ask the question, but like, what does it say about us as a people?
True crime is such a rising genre in the podcast world, TV world, book world. You're right. I think it's something about being able to have more insight into the criminal mind and just human nature and how people think. And it's a safe way to do it because you're doing it from the comfort of your own home. So you're able to have a live look into people's lives and the decisions that they make and why they make the decisions that they make. And that's what I found that people have been really interested and intrigued by our series, because you really have everyday people who are involved in the most unimaginable crimes. And these are people who have not had criminal histories. Some of them have not even had so much as a traffic ticket, and now they've been triggered to commit murder. And it's all
Mm.
based on people that they've had relationships with. So people watch because they want to know why. What makes a person snap? What makes them make that decision to commit that unimaginable act? And in the end, our goal in this series is to answer that question for the viewers and let them see for themselves how the relationships unfolded and why the person chose to commit the act that they did.
And with the format of this show, you guys actually incorporate family members and detectives who are probably working on these cases. Do you think that this offers them some form of therapy to kind of tell their story to the public and in a way honor these victims and their loved ones who have passed on?
Yes, for some, that is the case. We ask every family, we go to the families initially because we don't do any cases and tell any stories without the victims' families' blessing, because we want to be very respectful of how this tragedy has impacted their lives. And a lot of families don't want to relive having this story told on national TV. For others, they want to tell about who their loved one was. They want to share that. A lot of these stories are local. They didn't make national news, but for the families, they're everything. This act turned their lives upside down. And so for them, it's a way for them to share who this person was, the impact that they had on their lives, everything that they did in their community, and honor them so that their legacy is not how they died, but how they lived. And then the second thing that you mentioned, which is really important for our viewers, the level of investigation. Our viewers love to watch the interviews, for example, of witnesses and perpetrators. In every episode we show that because we want the viewers to go through the investigation with me and look at the interviews and say, you know what, look at the body language. Do you think that they're telling the truth? Does it sound like they're telling the truth? Are you buying into this story? Are they lying? So we feature those things so viewers can go through the investigation at the same time that I'm walking them through it. They're hearing the opinion of the detectives and the investigators. They're seeing the evidence for themselves as we take them step by step to the end when we finally reveal who the perpetrator actually is.
And Judge Faith, there are so many crimes, so many families to help. And with a show like this, with a platform this big, it could probably be a little overwhelming. So, how are you choosing which stories to share with us as an audience?
We choose the ones that we think will resonate the most with viewers. And that we think will have a significant impact, and that there's a level of investigation that we can dig into. So all of our cases, you don't know in the beginning. The investigators did not know from the beginning who the perpetrator was. So there was no smoking gun, I should say, in the beginning. But because of the investigation, we have one case that wasn't solved for a decade. It went cold. But because of the investigation, because of the tenacity of investigators, because of family members who chose to never give up and keep the pressure on, all of these cases in the end were solved, and there was accountability. So we look for cases where the family wants to come and talk about the victim and who they were, where there's a level of investigation that we can show the viewers how the case was solved, and then in the end, where there was some kind of accountability.
And earlier you mentioned podcasts, and I love to get the opinion of people like yourself when it comes to the true crime podcast communities. Some people, it can get a little touchy. Some people say that they are sticking their noses in places where it doesn't belong and they don't have the credentials, especially when you start talking about shows like this one, Killer Relationship, because you guys have that direct line to the victims' families and the detectives who were actually there when the crime, first took place and worked the case. So I have to hear your opinion.
Well, I think that people are interested in cases being solved. And those cold cases, sometimes the podcasts do a good job of bringing to light cases that people may have forgotten about because the cases have gone cold. So they'll come, and
Mhm.
so they will have and discuss those cases and talk about the investigation and where things stand now. And one thing that it does do, it raises awareness, because that's the
Mhm.
difficult part and the challenging part. When a case goes cold, people stop talking about it, they stop thinking about it. But there's this family who can't move on in their lives until they feel like they have some level of closure. So for them, every day it's nonstop what they think about. So I think that in a way, when you have those podcasts and other avenues that are exploring these cold cases, it keeps the word out about these victims, and it brings awareness to their cases. And a lot of times when the news isn't still covering them.
So are you seeing any common themes in these crimes? I mean, I know they are all relationship based, and you have a book, Sis Don't Settle. So no better person to talk about healthy relationships than yourself. So are we coming across common themes and red flags that we should look for when it comes to romantic relationships? Because unfortunately, majority of people who fall victim to homicide are killed by people who they already know. So what can we do to maybe stay a little safer?
Well, my book is all about how to stay smart in matters of the heart. And it really is about making better decisions and looking out for those red flags and learning more about yourself, what you like, what you don't like, what interests you, because the more you know about yourself, the better you're able to gauge whether somebody is compatible with you early on. And I always say, even for this series, um, look at people's patterns. People will lie, but their patterns don't. So look at the
Mm,
history. If somebody tells you, yes, I've cheated in every relationship I've had in the past, but I won't cheat on you. You're different. You're unique. Why? Because people don't change for you. They change for themselves. That's a red flag to me. So
yeah.
those are the things that I say look out for, those red flags. Red flags generally mean you don't need to stay to see how red the red flag is. It means stop, don't go, abort mission, move in another direction, and take that for what it's worth. So that's what we talk about in the book. And then on the show, I think people also look for patterns, signs, warning signs, a lot of those things, because then you can maybe learn something from somebody else's experience, so you don't have to experience that for yourself. You learn from somebody else's, you take that knowledge, and you make informed decisions going forward.
So Judge Faith, I always like to ask at the end of my interviews if there's someone out there watching this and they're still teetering on the line, not really sure if they're going to tune in Saturdays 8, 7 Central to watch Killer Relationships, what would you tell them right about now?
if you are interested in true crime and seeing justice served and learning more about these people's lives, the victims' lives, and who they were, then this is an incredible show for you to watch and tune in and just learn more about who these wonderful people were.
All right, Judge Faye, thank you so much for locking in with me today. I cannot thank you enough. And I know that everyone is going to be watching. I know I'm going to be in my seat with some popcorn to watch Killer Relationships on Oxygen 8/7 Central. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.